Hey everybody, welcome to week 2 in our faith journey in the life of Abraham. And this is a fantastic story because it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for you and me, what it means to live by faith. Now here's the great part of this story is that Abraham is this great leader of the Christian faith. His heritage is beyond compare. He's the father of many nations. And when God meets him, he tells him just that. Abram, I've got a plan for your life. You're going to be the father of many nations. You are going to have more descendants than the stars in the sky. I am going to bless you. And so Abraham says, great, what do you want me to do? And God says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to leave your family and I want you to go to the land of Canaan. And that's where I'm going to fulfill these promises. So here's the great thing. Abram drops everything. He takes his wife, he takes his nephew, which he really wasn't supposed to do, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And he leaves. He just goes where God tells him to go. And that's the great part of the story. You think, what great faith. But here's the problem. Abram compromises. Now, of course, you and I have never done that. You and I have never told half-truths or done half obedience. Of course, we've always responded just right. And you think that of Abraham, but that's the good news of the story. One of the greatest Christian leaders of all time just blows it. He just blows it. And yet that's not the end of the story. But let me tell you what happens next. So instead of going straight to Canaan like he's supposed to, he goes and he stops about halfway in a land called Haran. You know why he does it? Because that's what his father wants. His father, who didn't even worship the true God, but he wants to just kind of keep his father happy, keep his family happy, and so he kind of parks it there. That's not where he's supposed to be. It's a distraction on the way, but he does it anyway. See, that's the thing. He didn't fully obey what God had told him to do, and so he continues to compromise. And because he's not in Canaan, because he's in Haran, he's in a land where there's a great famine. And so now he's got to go find someplace real quick to go to. And so he says, you know what, let's go to Egypt. There's food there. And then on the way, he turns to his wife and he says, honey, I got to tell you something. You are incredibly beautiful. That's a great thing to say to your wife. And she was 65 years old, but he saw her with great beauty. And so he said, look, you know what, if we get into Egypt, Pharaoh's going to want to have you for his wife, and so he's going to have me killed if he knows that I'm your husband. So here's what I want you to do. Here's the problem. Half-truth. He says, I want you to tell everybody that you're my sister. That way, my life will be spared, my skin will be saved, you'll be fine, everything will be good. I'm sure this didn't go over really well with Sarah. And so they get to the land. Of course, everyone tells Pharaoh about this beautiful woman that's just come to the land. And of course, he says, I'd like to bring her as my wife. I'd like to take her into my court. I'd like to take her home. And so what happens is she goes to Pharaoh's court. This is not a good thing. But because Abram is supposedly her brother, he gives him all these things. He gives him livestock, he gives him things that make him wealthy beyond compare. But here's the problem. He was living a lie. And God doesn't bless lies. And so what happens is that Pharaoh's whole household gets sick because Sarai is there. And she probably breaks down and tells him the whole story. And he goes right to Abram and he says, hey, what are you doing to me? You said this was your sister. This is your wife. It's obviously your wife. Get out of here. Get out of my place. Take your wife with you and don't trouble me anymore because you brought great calamity in my house. And so now they're out. They are out. And now they continue to go on and try to get back on track. And this is where God gets a hold of Abram. Because on his way, he's between two places. He's on his way and he's almost at Bethel, which by the way means house of God. And he's just leaving Ai, which means ruins or heap. You see, isn't that the interesting part? He's right between being where God wants him to be, being in the house of God, but he's settling to be in the place he was, and that's where he's in ruin or heap, and he's kind of right in between, and he's got to make a decision. Now, here's the beauty of the story. He says, you know what? I cannot keep deceiving God. I cannot live by half-truths or half-obedience. And so he turns to his nephew Lot. Now, why he took Lot into his household and took him with him, no one knows for sure, but, you know, he didn't have any children. Lot was his nephew. He was like a son to him. And so he thought, oh, it's not that big a deal. Even though God said, leave my family, I'll just bring Lot. But he realizes that to get right with God again, he needs to make his relationships right. And so he turns to Lot and he says, look, you know what? We need to go our separate ways. But you pick. You pick. He wants to honor this relationship. He says, look, if you go right, I'll go left. If you go left, I'll go right. I'll just do whatever is best for you, but I just want to honor you in this. And so they do. They part ways, and they do it with blessing. And then God meets him. Because now it's just him and Sarai. He's back to the place where he's supposed to be. He goes back to that place. He builds an altar before God, and he just is quiet and listens before God. Listens to God. You see, he honored his relationships, and now, most importantly, he honors God. See, Matthew 6:33 says, seek first his kingdom and all his righteousness. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And that's what Abram does. He honors God. Now I don't know about you, but this story is encouraging to me. You know, Revelation says, you can either be hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm. And see, Abram, who started off hot for God, becomes lukewarm. He loses sight of the calling that God has on his life. He compromises. He makes mistakes. He spouts out half-truths. He does kind of half obedience. And you come to realize that doesn't get us anywhere. You see, if we are to be people who walk in faith, it's all or nothing. You're in or you're out. There is no middle ground. There is no compromise. You want to be in the house of God, not in a ruin and a heap. But see, here's the thing. From God's perspective, this was an opportunity for a wake-up call, not a judgment call. And it wasn't too late to get back on track again. I think that's the challenge for us here today. I think the challenge is that God wants us to get back on track. God wants us to follow him wholeheartedly. God wants us to be where he has called us, not just on the journey, not distracted, not thrown off on the side, not living in lies, but walking with him in total truth and obedience, wholeheartedly, 100% in, no compromise. I think that's a lesson for us. And my prayer now as you meet with your groups, that you'll talk through what it means to get back on track with God. Because maybe you are on track, and that's great. Maybe, just maybe, you need to do some course corrections. So you can go with your gut and make all your decisions without God, or you can include him and listen to him first. That's the challenge for today. I hope your small groups are great, and I hope you get a chance to walk through what it means to be 100% sold out for God and back on track to where he wants you to be. It's not too late. Thanks for listening.